Good morning, my name is Gary Britland. Today I'm in Oswaldtwistle, Lancashire, and this is the entrance to the Foxhill Bank Reserve. We are right on the border of Church and Oswaldtwistle. That way is Market Street Church and that way is Union Road, Oswaldtwistle. And this was the entrance to Foxhill Bank Printworks in the 1800s. A very industrial site in Lancashire's Industrial Revolution. So I'll just tell you a bit about it in a few minutes. Thank you. This is a bit further down the Foxhill Bank Reserve, and there's just bits of the old stonework you can see on my side here. And a bit further down is the entrance, the gate post. Just one survives today. Thank you. This is the Foxhill Bank Nature Reserve, which was in the 1800s. It was the printing works, Foxhill Bank Printing Works, and behind me are two lodges which are split by the River Tinker, the Tinker Brook, which runs right through Oswaldtwistle. The small one is further up at the bottom of Mill Street, and the large one is just here at the bottom. That was drained in the 1990s to about 4 to 6 feet, and the nature reserve now is quite overgrown. There's quite a lot of industrial remains, and also what remains of is the gatehouse to the large manor house, which was just up here. Owned by Mr. William Brewer. It was probably the manorial site of Oswaldtwistle quite early on in the 1200s or 1300s, but in the 1800s it was a large printing site, Calico printing site. At first it was a fueling mill early on, and then this site was a Calico printing site in 1780. Owned by Richard Brewer. Later on, about 1790, there was a company owned by William Mercer and Benjamin Bury, but Mr. Bury left in 1790. Later on in 1797, it was owned by the big family, the Peel family and Yates family, because Mr. Peel, Robert Peel, he married the Yates' daughter, Mrs. Elizabeth Yates, and they had a company and they carried on Calico printing, probably the famous parsley pattern. In 1813 it was leased to James Simpson and William Bury and an E.V. Fox and James Langdon, so they were in partnership and carried on with Calico printing, and the business was extended, and which included machine printing, and it was so prosperous that Mr. James Simpson, he had a diamond pattern which was very popular at the time, and he's buried at Church Kirk. But later on in 1837, Mr. Thomas Simpson, which was his nephew, he later owned the Aspen Colliery Coke Ovens. He ran it with Mr. Lawrence Rostron and Mr. James Simpson Young and Mr. Gregory Landon, so that was another partnership. Later on it became, the company name was Simpson and Young in the 1840s. Later in 1858 the firm was Foxhill Bank Printworks. It was owned by a Mr. Nathan Lloyd. In 1872 he erected a large bleach works here, which had the whole site, which had 700 employees with 3 companies, so it's a very busy site. And then later in 1891 the Frederick Steiner Co, they did a lot of calico printing, mainly turkey red dye, which they were famous for. but that was the company because Mr. Frederick Steiner died in 1869, so it would have been run by his daughters and his son-in-law, which was Mr. James Hartman. That's how he ended up with Hartman Street in Accrington. Later on, the business ended in 1931 because there was a big decline in cotton and the printing was done cheaper abroad. And in 1935 bleaching started here by a company. The persons were Neuss and Hesslin and Kempton, and they carried on bleaching while 1958. The site was then cleared as a nature reserve. As you can see now, it's quite overgrown, and this started in 1970, and a lot of work has gone to try and improve this site because there was lots of ruins from the Calico printing and bleaching works. It's quite a large site today, and a lot of people take the dogs, exercise the dogs, and do a lot of walking on this site. All that remains today really is the coaching house from the massive house which was up here. The Bury family had a massive house, and then James Simpson moved into that house, and then it was demolished later in the mid to late 1800s. But all that remains is the gatehouse, which is called Chestnuts today. Thank you.